What is up guys, Stark here. In today's character spotlight I am taking a look at another of the summer servants, and in this one is going to be the summer Mordred. So she is going to be a 4-star servant who will change from a saber class into a rider class, and she will go up to level 80, and at level 80 she will have 11,400 HP and 9,212 attack. This will rank her 64th overall in HP and 57th overall in attack. And then her max stats will be 15,822 HP and 13,154 attack. For her extra stats, she will have a 204 star weight and a 9.2% for the star generation. And then for her Noble Phantasm gain, for the attack it'll be 0.71, and for defense it'll be 3%. So overall she has a pretty decent Noble Phantasm generation. She's got insanely high star absorption, so she will be taking in pretty much all of the stars, and she does have a pretty solid star generation as well. Moving on to her skills, her first skill is going to be the Cerulean Ride A. This will increase her arts card effectiveness for 3 turns. It's a pretty good buff, honestly. It starts at 20% level 1, goes up to 30% at level 10 on a 5-turn charge time. So this is a very effective skill that you will be able to make good use of, having a low cooldown, and then there's only 2 turns of dead time or downtime in between the end of the skill and the charge time, so you shouldn't have to wait too long before you can use this skill again. And it's also very effective, being an arts card bonus. She relies heavily on her arts cards, primarily to do Noble Phantasm spam. She's not going to be doing that much damage overall, but just the amount of time you can spam her Noble Phantasm definitely makes up for that. Her second skill is going to be the Rodeo Flip A+. This will grant her evasion for 1 turn, as well as increase her critical star generation rate for 1 turn. So this is a nice skill in the fact that it will give her that evasion for 1 turn, and then it also will give her the star generation. And you know, as I previously stated, she doesn't really have that great of a star generation. It's kind of below average, so having this skill to help, you know, boost that by 30% level 1 and 50% at level 10 will definitely help her produce a few more stars, which she will probably be absorbing with her high star absorption. It does have a bit of a higher cooldown though, being a 7-turn charge time at max level, so there's going to be a lot of downtime in between use of this skill. But you know, you do get that evasion and you do get a bonus to star generation, so you know, you're getting a lot of good stuff out of it, but it does have a lot of downtime, so you will have to be very careful when you use this skill. Her third and final skill is going to be the Endless Summer B. This will grant her guts 1 time over the course of 3 turns, and then it will also charge her own Noble Phantasm gauge. So she will come back to life with 1000 HP when she does revive with the guts, and the Noble Phantasm gauge increase will be 20% at level 1 and goes up to 30% at level 10. And again, this has a bit of a higher cooldown, sitting at 7 turns on the charge time. So again, you will be waiting quite a few turns in order to use this skill, especially if you get hit with that, like if you get KO'd early on and she has to use the guts in one of the first turns. So there's going to be a lot of downtime there. So again, you're going to have to be really careful when you use the skill, but it is a very good skill overall. Moving on here to her passives, she's going to have 2 of them. The first one is going to be the Magic Resistance B, which will increase her debuff resistance by 17.5%. And the second one is going to be the Surfing A, which will increase her arts card effectiveness by 5%, as well as increase her critical star drop rate by 5%. Moving on to her Ascension. For her first Ascension, she is going to need 4 Rider pieces and 50,000 Quantum pieces. For her second Ascension, she is going to need 10 Rider pieces, 6 Seashells, and 150,000 Quantum pieces. For her third Ascension, she will need 4 Rider Monuments, 16 Great Knight Medals, 10 Dragon Fangs, and 500,000 Quantum pieces. And then for her fourth and final Ascension, she will need 10 Rider Monuments, 20 Dragon Fangs, 4 Dragon Scales, and 1.5 million Quantum pieces. And then for her skill enhancements to max skill out from 1 to 10, you are going to need 14 Gems of Rider, 14 Magic Gems of Rider, 14 Secret Gems of Rider, 24 Great Knight Medals, 12 Seashells, 20 Homunculus Babies, 12 Tear Stones of Blood, 1 Crystallized Lore, and 27,200,000 Quantum pieces. Next, we're going to move on to her command card deck, and that will consist of 2 Quick, 2 Arts, and 1 Buster. And the hit counts for those are going to be 3 hits on the Quick, 2 piece on the Arts cards, and only 1 hit on the Buster, and then for her extra attack she will have 4 hits. So she's got a little bit on the lower end of the hit counts for her cards, especially on the arts cards. A little bit of a drawback because you're not going to be doing a lot of hits with your arts cards. You definitely want to be making the most use of the arts cards. But she does have solid Noble Phantasm generation, so she definitely can combo those arts cards in to help her Noble Phantasm spam. So speaking of her Noble Phantasm, it is also going to be an arts card that will deal damage to all enemies, and it will have a chance to reduce their Noble Phantasm gauge by 1 on the overcharge. So this Noble Phantasm is not going to be doing a whole bunch of damage, but the power in this Noble Phantasm lies in the fact that you could spam this Noble Phantasm very often. It does have 5 hits on the Noble Phantasm, so you'll get a pretty good rebound from it, and then if you do combo it into an arts chain, you're pretty much going to be set for your Noble Phantasm again on back-to-back turns. Especially, you just use her 3rd skill for the gauge increase, or if you have another character that can provide a bonus to that, you could potentially get the Noble Phantasm off 2 or 3 turns in a row. If not though, you're going to be getting it back really fast. She can spam this very often, which is why it does a little bit less damage, but again, you're going to make up for that in the fact that you could just keep using it. So now moving on to some of the craft essences you can use on this character. The first one is going to be her maximum bond craft essence, which is going to unlock the Pride Wind, which I believe is her surfboard. And while equipped, this will increase Noble Phantasm strength of all allies by 20% while in the field. So this is a nice craft essence to use just to increase the overall damage that she'll do with the Noble Phantasm, which like I said is a little bit on the lower side, but you do make up for it in the fact you can spam it. So having a little bit to a boost of damage is definitely going to go a long way. Another good option is going to be the Halloween Princess, which will increase your Noble Phantasm strength by 15%, as well as starting the battle with 30% of your gauge filled. This is really nice because you obviously get the bonus to damage, but you get the gauge filled at the start of the fight, so you can kind of preserve your 3rd skill and use that for the turn after you use your Noble Phantasm the first time, so you can keep that spam going. And if you do have it max limit broken, it's definitely going to be that much of a better option, being able to start the battle with 50% of the gauge filled and getting the 20% increase to your Noble Phantasm damage. Another decent option is going to be the Golden Sumo, and this pretty much does the same thing as the Halloween Princess, except instead of the Noble Phantasm damage, you're going to just increase your base attack by 10%. And then 4th and finally, you can go ahead and use the Formal Craft, which will increase her arts card effectiveness by 25%. She does primarily focus on using those arts cards, so being able to give that massive bonus to the effectiveness of it will definitely go a long way to doing more damage, getting your Noble Phantasm charged faster, and in my opinion, it is probably one of the best to use on her. So now moving on to some of these servants you can use on this character, and first up is going to be Jack. So anytime you have a character that focuses on crits, you do want to use Jack. Now Mordred doesn't really focus on using crits too much, but she does have really high absorption, and she will benefit from the stars that Jack can generate, and Jack can generate a ton of stars. So it is a good combination to use, having Jack with a lower star weight and Mordred with a really high star weight. She will pretty much always be getting those stars, and then that'll help her with her Noble Phantasm generation if she does get crits on her arts cards. And again, that'll just keep the spam of Mordred's Noble Phantasm going, and it's a pretty solid combination to use. Next up is going to be Bride Nero. So Bride Nero is a really good servant for Mordred to combo with, having 3 arts cards in her deck as well. She also can increase the Noble Phantasm gain of Mordred, so she'll get more off of her attacks. And then again, everything here is pretty much just to keep Mordred's Noble Phantasm spam going as much as possible. She can also increase the attack of Mordred and her drop rate for stars, which will go back into Mordred with her high star weight. And she can heal her and increase defense to keep Mordred alive if she does take a few hits and go down. Or after she revives with the guts, you can use Nero to heal her back up and keep her alive that much longer. Next up on the list is going to be Tamino no Me. So again, she's a fantastic servant. Anytime you have someone using arts cards, you pretty much want to use this character on your team if you do have her. And she'll be able to reduce the cooldowns of Mordred's skills. They are a little bit high, so being able to do that is definitely going to be beneficial to you. She also has an arts heavy deck, so she can do arts chains as well as increase the gauge of Mordred. So again, all of this goes into her Null Phantasm spam, and she can also increase the arts card effectiveness of Mordred as well as restoring the HP after the interlude quest. So overall, obviously, you know, Tamino is one of the best characters in the game, and she combos very well with Mordred. And then finally, we have Waver for pretty much, not all of the reasons, but pretty much similar reasons to Tamamo. He has art stack, he can increase the Null Phantasm gauge of Mordred very often. He has 3 different skills for it, so you could potentially use like 2 of them on the first turn, and then the last skill on the next turn when you're trying to get your Null Phantasm gauge filled. And he definitely opens up a lot of options for back-to-back or potentially back-to-back-to-back Null Phantasm spam for Mordred. I know I said that word a lot, but that is the focal point of this character, being able to spam her Noble Phantasm as much as you can. So now moving on to her actual star rankings, and first up is going to be her stats, which will give her a 3.8 out of 5. For her skills, I am giving her 4 stars in skills. She's got a very good kit of skills, however, some of them do have a little bit of a higher cooldown, so she does lose a few points there. But again, you know, it is a very nice kit. It definitely works well with what she tries to do as a character. Next up, for her Noble Phantasm, she will get 4 stars for this. It doesn't do that much damage, but as I've said numerous times in this video, the selling point of this Noble Phantasm is the spam you can do on it, which in turn makes the damage seem, you know, pretty good when you're able to use it so many times in the same fight. And then you also do have the benefit of decreasing the gauge of the enemies by 1, so if you're just spamming it off, you can just keep decreasing the charge. Now, you're not always going to get it to go off, but you know, the sheer number of times you use it, you're definitely going to get it off at least on one of the enemies every time. So if you just keep spamming it, you're just going to keep dropping the Noble Phantasm gauge of the enemies, and then they can't use their Noble Phantasms, which is definitely going to go a long way in helping you beat the event or whatever you're doing with her. Next up, for her survivability, she's going to get 4 stars as well. She does have the evasion skill and the guts, so those are really good to keep her alive. You know, they do have a little bit of a higher cooldown, which kind of sucks, but overall, if you're smart and use them in the right situations, you'll definitely be able to keep Mordred alive long enough to get your Noble Phantasms off, and then once that happens, you're pretty much good. You also do, as I just talked about, have the ability to decrease Noble Phantasm charges, which in turn will help her stay alive if she's not getting hit with Noble Phantasms. And then for her versatility, she is only going to get 3.5 stars here. She does have the ability to spam her Noble Phantasm, but you do need a little bit of support from your other team members in order to keep that going. And it doesn't do that much damage overall, so it is a bit of a drawback there. So you can't really fit her onto any team or every team, but there are a lot of different situations you can make good use of her. And, you know, if you can make those teams, she's going to be really good, but they are limited just a little bit, so she does lose a few points for that. So overall, that will give her a 3.9 out of 5. For a 4-star servant, she is very, very good. I'm extremely disappointed that I did not get her. I know you guys, when you hear that, you're like, oh, I didn't see a video for his pulls. That's because I kind of got carried away. I went in, I did one, I wanted to do one multi-pull, so I didn't think to record it, and I pulled Tamamo Lancer, and I was like, okay, I'll just do one more. And I pulled something else. I think it was Anne Bonny and Mary Reed, and then I just kept going, and I don't know why I didn't record it, but I didn't. So I will be recording in part 2 when I pull for a Saber Archer. So I will be recording in part 2, and I'll probably just go through and show you everything that I got for the Mordred banner. But yeah, I'm really disappointed I didn't get her. I guess that's a bit of a spoiler that I didn't end up getting her, but oh well. I'm really disappointed. I'm trying my hardest not to pull anymore, but we'll see if I can actually hold out for the duration of the event. Anyway, guys, that's gonna wrap up the spotlight. I will leave you here with Mordred's Noble Phantasm, and I will see you guys tomorrow.